Civilizations thrive not just through force but through invisible systems of control. Complex networks managed resources, labor, trade, and information across vast lands. Cities operated like living machines, moving food, water, people, and knowledge constantly. Large populations demanded reliable supply chains that could survive war and drought. Storage ensured societies could endure shortages and political instability. Alike, roads connected regions, extending authority far beyond the boundaries of city centers. Communication networks spread decisions quickly, preventing chaos across diverse territories. Infrastructure projects reflected long-term planning rather than short-term political gain. Specialized workers maintained systems most citizens never noticed but fully depended upon. Central planning reduced uncertainty and allowed societies to operate beyond local limits. Trade linked cultures by spreading not only goods but ideas, technologies, and beliefs. Resource management determined whether societies expanded steadily or collapsed suddenly. Agricultural planning balanced seasonal cycles with population needs and political demands. Surpluses created stability while shortages often triggered unrest or systemic change. Administrative records tracked production, storage, and distribution with great precision. Transportation systems reduced isolation and encouraged regional economic specialization. Logistics often mattered more than battlefield victories when determining dominance. Skilled planners transformed geography into a strategic advantage rather than an obstacle. Massive projects required coordination across thousands of workers for many generations. Systems outlasted rulers by functioning long after their original creators had vanished. Standardization simplified construction, repair, and expansion across vast territories. Predictable systems allowed merchants and farmers to plan for the future. With confidence, public works reinforced authority by making political power tangible in everyday life. Water management reflected advanced engineering and awareness of environmental limits. Knowledge accumulation enabled gradual improvements instead of constant reinvention. Complex societies relied on redundancy to prevent single failures from causing collapse. Political stability encouraged long-term investment in infrastructure and education. Labor specialization increased efficiency but also created dependence between regions. Central coordination balanced local autonomy with overarching control. Effectively, economic systems shaped social hierarchies and access to opportunity for citizens. Governance depended on trust that systems would perform as promised over time. Failure often occurred gradually, hidden by systems that delayed visible consequences. Maintenance proved just as vital as innovation in sustaining long-term stability. Supply disruptions revealed the true interconnectedness of regions and populations. Population growth amplified both prosperity and vulnerability within these systems. Environmental limits forced societies to adapt or risk irreversible decline. Controlling storage facilities effectively meant controlling political leverage. Bureaucracy transformed raw resources into organized and functional power. Systems required constant oversight to prevent corruption and inefficiency from spreading. Coordination allowed societies to operate at scales never before imagined. Large networks reduced reliance on individual leaders or heroic figures alone. Economic resilience depended on diversification rather than resource concentration. Transportation efficiency shaped the pace of expansion and consolidation everywhere. Knowledge transfer ensured consistency across distant administrative regions reliably. Long-distance trade introduced both opportunity and systemic risk simultaneously. Resource extraction reshaped landscapes and determined long-term sustainability. Systems rewarded cooperation while punishing isolation or fragmentation. Effectively centralized authority simplified decisions but increased overall systemic fragility. Infrastructure symbolized permanence even when political power shifted frequently. Planning transformed uncertainty into complexity that could be managed strategically. Strategic reserves allowed societies to absorb shocks without immediate collapse. Logistics determined whether ambition could be realized across regions effectively. Administrative consistency created predictability across multiple generations. Systems balanced efficiency against resilience in times of crisis reliably. Trade routes became arteries sustaining both economic and political life. Complex coordination reduced waste but required constant flows of information. Stability emerged from systems quietly functioning in the background consistently. Power flowed through networks rather than through a single point of control. Collapse often followed when systems failed to adapt to new pressures. Scale magnified both success and failure at the same time across regions. Societies thrived when systems aligned with environmental and geographic realities. Mismanagement accumulated slowly before triggering sudden and catastrophic breakdowns. Expansion increased complexity and demanded ever better coordination to survive. Administrative overload strained even the most advanced systems profoundly. Long-term success depended on learning from previous mistakes and failures. Resource flow defined the limits of political authority, and regional control systems created order, but also constrained flexibility and rapid adaptation. Overconfidence often preceded systemic breakdowns and broader societal collapse. Stability required constant adjustment rather than static perfection over time. Infrastructure failures exposed hidden dependencies that were otherwise invisible. Coordination allowed societies to exceed natural geographic and environmental limits. Predictable systems encouraged population growth, trade, and urbanization effectively. Complexity increased resilience until it exceeded the capacity of management. Systems favored continuity over innovation during periods of relative stability. Gradual decline was harder to recognize than sudden catastrophic collapse events. Long-term planning competed constantly with short-term political incentives. Networks amplified both cooperation and conflict among distant regions. Systemic strength often masked vulnerabilities waiting quietly to be revealed. Maintenance failures accumulated silently. Sometimes over many decades, adaptability ultimately separated survival from extinction in complex civilizations. Systems shaped daily life more deeply than individual decisions or local choices. Interdependence reduced autonomy but increased collective power across regions. Central oversight balanced efficiency with critical local knowledge and nuance. Economic structures reinforced political authority and social hierarchy consistently. Control over logistics defined strategic dominance across territories, and time systems required legitimacy to function effectively within society and politics. Decline began when coordination failed to keep pace with growing complexity. Scale transformed simple processes into challenges demanding constant oversight. Stability depended on alignment between systems and environmental realities. Collapse revealed how much depended on unseen structures and networks. Survivors adapted systems rather than abandoning them entirely after failure. Lessons were often forgotten once stability returned to society and governance. Systems persisted until disruption exceeded their tolerance thresholds reliably. Complexity created both strength and fragility simultaneously across all systems. Decline rarely resulted from a single catastrophic failure or sudden event. Long-lasting systems balanced control with flexibility to sustain resilience. Power ultimately rested on sustained coordination rather than force or charisma. Civilization advanced through systems more than ideology, luck, or conquest alone. History remembers leaders, but systems shaped outcomes far beyond any individual. Modern systems survive only if these structural lessons are recognized and applied.